yeah, my big piece of advice would be to have everything planned out as much as possible before you start.
This is the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, your home for all things Saskatchewan, all things real estate. If this is the information that you're looking for, make sure to like and subscribe for more information. And this week, super excited to have Kirk Boland. You wear so many hats, Kirk, that I'll let you do kind of the introduction, but home builder, realtor, land developer, investor with your wife Amanda, who's been a past guest on the podcast. Did I catch all of it?
Yeah, I think you caught pretty much all of it. Yeah, a few things.
So one of the main reasons why we're having you on the channel today is we're taking a peek at this beautiful home that you guys built. So just walk us through this latest build that you guys did. Just as an overview, the podcast is mostly going to be about the process of building a home. But before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of building, just walk us through what you guys have done here with this amazing home.
Sure. So one thing that's important to us, along with, looking really nice and making it your own space and that, is just even the functionality of the house and that. And so even house placement is when it comes to where it sits on the lot, the windows, the direction, your sunlight exposure, and that sort of thing is all just very important to us and that. And so we take that into mind when we're building a house here. This house, along with another one that we've built, one of the things too that's important and that we've come to see for acreage life in that in particular is the importance of a mudroom. And so my wife Amanda has actually taken a great amount of detail and thought that went into the mudroom and that. And it kind of becomes the hidden workhorse that, it's really important, and people don't understand the importance of it until you actually, start using it in that. So
we were doing a tour before and you were pointing out all those little unique features of the home, the mudroom, the height of the vanity, different flooring transitions. You guys really did an amazing job with this property. And so kind of transitioning this into, if someone's looking at building a property, and if you've never done it before, or maybe you've never even owned a house before, it can be kind of daunting to say, where do I begin on this process? And so on this style, if someone is looking to build out in the country like you guys have done here versus building in the city, what are some of the major differences that they're going to find during that process?
A couple of the big things that you're going to find building out on an acreage is, first, your water and your septic are the first two things that you're going to want to keep in mind. Now, depending on where you build, you might have the option that there's different water companies that have ran water lines out throughout the country that you might be able to tie into. The other thing is that if that's not available, there's always a cistern route. And so one of the things that even too, if that becomes your option in that, is to make sure that your cistern is actually big enough. There's some, I would say that, they kind of end up undersizing their cisterns. Maybe probably a little tidbit right now would be, or a little tip would be, to keep in mind probably a 4 to at least minimum 5,000 gallon cistern in that when considering that route. The other one is well water in that. And so, there's different companies and whatnot, whether drilling or even contacting the province. There's entities that you can see where the wells have been drilled and the depth and quality in that too. So
we're here in Corman Park, is that correct? Or are we just a little bit outside Corman Park?
So we are just outside of Corman Park right now. We are in the RM of Laird in that. So that's about 10 minutes north of Martinsville.
So with dealing with the municipality on a build, how would you compare that to dealing with a city? And is it harder to get a build out here in the country? Is it easier? What would we say on the permitting side?
On the permitting side, I would say it's actually been pretty good. The RRM administrator has been great to work with in that, as far as that goes, and getting back to us in, a fairly timely manner.
So when we're talking about building a property, and like I said, a lot of people start off and they think it would be amazing to build like a custom home and have it exactly as I want it. And me personally, when I kind of hear that, I think there'd be nothing more frustrating than trying to plan out exactly how I want my property to look like. But just walk us through the stages of if someone is looking to take on a build of their own, whether they're getting like a qualified company like you guys to come in so they can understand the process, or maybe they're kind of wanting to take something on their own. Kind of walk us through, let's say, like the first step of what does it take to get a property going.
Well, I guess the first step in home building, if you want to build a home in the acreage, I would say, go for a drive first and kind of get to know the area, grab a cup of coffee and, just head out of town and that, and just kind of get a feel for the country and as to where you want to go. And then I would say, take a breath and then just look at some houses and that and kind of start coming up with some ideas and that and just gathering. So, the more you can come up with an idea as to like what you want, everything starts at the design aspect in that. And so, which can be, I know it sounds really daunting for some, and some it's a great experience in that. But I think a lot of the fun is in the design, and really what the sky is the limit and what you can come up with.
So going from the fun part to the not fun part, the actual starting of the build. So we have our design, we've met with the architect or whoever is kind of building our blueprint. Maybe we've even gone through the process of like buying the land. What's the next process in this journey?
Well, if you're going to be doing it yourself, the next process would be having your plans and then submitting for permits. And so they'll want to see some plans and kind of where you plan to put it, the house and that, and just even a general idea. It's not like letter to the law sort of thing, but they need to have an idea as to to making sure that you're within your setbacks and that sort of thing.
And I assume next stage after this, we're starting to pour concrete. Am I correct?
Correct. So then from there, you would have sent out for some tenders and that, and found a concrete company. And so usually your concrete company, they'll come in, they'll excavate, and then they'll come in, they'll put the forms in and do the pour. Another thing for acreage builds, and I'd throw this in there too, that one of the processes that we do is we strip back the topsoil. So typically in a city, and that's probably one of the big differences between the city and an acreage build, is typically you're in a new development in the city and that, and so there is no all the topsoil has been stripped away and you're just dealing with clay and that in the city. And then after development is done, the house is done and whatnot, then you bring in your landscaping. Here, it's a little different. You have your topsoil. Typically, you want to try and keep the topsoil that is, I guess, native to the area. You want to try and keep all.
You want to preserve as much as you can.
You do. You want to try and keep it, and even out in this development here, it's some of the land was farmland and whatnot too. So it was actually really good farmland. So with that in mind, you want to keep that topsoil. So we strip the topsoil back. Usually that's something that you can do yourself, or even when your concrete company comes in to excavate, ask them to, pull that topsoil back. It might cost you a little bit, a couple hours in extra wages or extra rates and that, but, it'll save you quite a bit more because it's quite a bit more expensive to haul in additional topsoil.
Well, and having that topsoil on hand later on, you probably want that. And as you're correctly pointing out, even having some native topsoil to the area, it's naturalized. You're not going to bring in any weeds and seeds that you're not wanting. So when we have the concrete poured, what are we coming up with after that?
So after the concrete is poured and the curing time is done, then you come up to your framing section. And so typically you'll have you'll have some time, and by this time you would have went and got quotes and that from your framing or from your building supplier and that. And then from there, you arrange delivery, and then they'll have that delivered out. Your framing guys will then come into site. Usually you meet with them a couple days prior, give them the plans, go over things with them so they have a good idea as to like what's going on. They would have seen the initial drawings and that for the bid process, but just any minor little changes or any things that, come up and that need to be discussed is something that, would happen prior to them commencing framing.
Probably one of the most exciting portions of the build is when you see that skeleton of the house kind of going up and taking shape, I assume.
Oh, it definitely is. Having the concrete walls when they break the frames, break the forms apart, you're starting to see something, but definitely like when the framing starts coming in, especially once they start putting walls up, then you're starting to see things take shape and that, and it gets to be really exciting because then you're starting to see your dream come to life.
Awesome. And so once the framing is put in place, what are we working on after that?
So after the framing is in place, there's usually a couple things that can start happening simultaneously. Usually you want to try and like keep your trades, give each trade their time. A little bit of overlap is, I would say it's okay. However, just even respecting them, and it even comes down to, people not wanting to feel rushed. That way, you still maintain a high level of quality and that. But so when the framing is done, then you'd call in for your plumbing and that. And that's when they'd start roughing in for like all your ABS and that sort of thing.
You're putting the arteries of the home in place, the blood flow, the electricity, the plumbing, all those things will go kind of behind your finished walls, you would say.
Correct. And typically, you'd have your plumbers come in, they'd run that, they'd have their inspections, and then you'd have your electrician come in. And during this time, you'd have your roofer come in to start sealing up your roof so that your roof is watertight then.
Okay, so we got the wires, the plumbing, we got the roof in place. What are we starting to work on after that?
So then once all that is in, then you'd actually come in and you'd want to start on your siding and that. And so the reason why you were siding is because then your insulation and your vapor barrier start going in and that. And that would be your next steps after that. And so after your electrical inspection, your plumbing inspections are done. And then, you'd get going and then to seal up your envelope on it, because by this time your doors and windows, your framers have put that in. And get your siding done. And so then you're sealed up on the outside. And that's, by this stage too, like this is considered lockup. And then you just move into your poly and your insulation. And so there's another poly vapor barrier inspection that happened at that point too, after that's done.
And probably, I would argue, one of the most important points of the home build is the insulation part. We live in Saskatchewan. It gets effing cold. And so you need to have that really good insulation and it being properly installed. And so, anything you could add on making sure a home is properly insulated in a part of the world where it gets to be minus 40?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And it is really important. I know some of the things that we do with our homes, and it even comes down to, I guess it goes back to even a little bit here. There's the energy modeling. And so that tells you get an energy modeling done on your house. So that'll tell you your furnace, the windows that you're supposed to use, whether it's double pane, triple pane. Some of these things, there can be different variances as to how much insulation in different zones. I know Saskatchewan, they actually just came out this year, to my belief, is they've kind of made it like a set standard instead of different zones for climates and that. So it has bringing this to the industry. I know always two sides of an argument, but it's kind of nice to have these set standards.
I guess it gives consumers, without being experts like you in home building, the peace of mind that, if I've purchased a property, that there is going to be a set standard of the quality of the build. Is that kind of how you'd view that, Kirk?
Yes. I think that, yeah, I think the quality and even just where you spend your money too, like, how much insulation do we need? Essentially sky is the limit, like if you want to build it with, 2x8 or 2x10 constructions, go for it. Is it probably overkill? Well, probably, but it's just nice, yeah, having these things that, we have these, just a general, like a more set standard across, and not having to worry if you're in one zone or the other.
So once we put the winter coat on the home, and I guess the cooling in the summertime, what's our next building stage?
So after that, then it does start to get even more exciting too, because then after you're done with the poly and that, you start to move to the drywall stage. And so everything has been roughed in this time. And this is where the house on the inside starts to get closed in, which is really cool then, because now you're starting to see, and the skeleton is like going away, and now you're starting to see each individual room. You can more easily envision like the depth of the rooms and that. And so your drywall and your mudding then commence after that.
Are these exciting times because there's a lot of forward progress? Like I said, like framing is an exciting time because it doesn't take very long to like see that shape go up. Drywall is the same. Once you have drywall up, the work goes fairly quickly and it really enhances the overall look of the property that's kind of coming along.
Oh, it does. And I think, yeah, as you move forward and that, it's actually surprising too, and like how quickly you end up, a person does go from stage to stage, depending on how the scheduling is with your trades and whatnot, from your framing to your drywall. I guess it depends on how things are going. You're like a month and a half to like 2 months, obviously give or take, depending on what happens with weather and like supply issues and that sort of thing. But, things can happen quite quickly.
Awesome. So we have the drywall up. I take it then we're doing a lot of interior finishing at that point. We're getting a lot closer to the finishing point.
Yeah. And so by this time too, like typically when you hit framing and your your rough in stages, by that time too, you would have had your cabinetry people come out to get final measurements and final design decisions so that they can get going on that. Cabinets tend to be like 6 to 8 weeks. So like from your framing stage and that, you're looking a month and a half, 2 months. And so after your drywall is done, you're starting to get into, you've already, depending on the company and that you've picked, you're priming, you've got first coat of paint on and that. And once your first coat of paint is on, well, now your finishers are starting to already come in and that and put on all your casements around, hang your interior, your interior doors and put all your casements around your windows and that sort of thing. So yeah, like by this time too, now you're starting to get really close to all like the pretty things, I guess some would say, but yeah.
Any steps to finish off the home from here? So interior finishing is kind of in its place. What are the last steps that we're working on to kind of get everything wrapped up?
So by the time to get things wrapped up from what they would call stage one and for your finishing and that, then you're starting to put in, your flooring's starting to come in. Depending on what's been decided, your cabinets are starting to come in. Your cabinets will come in and be finished out. After your floors are done, your baseboards are going on, you're scheduling painting and that sort of thing. So things you'll be scheduling in your electrician then to come and start to hang your lights and that sort of thing. After your cabinets, then it's your countertops, and then call in your plumber to make all your final connections there and connect appliances, and before you know it, you're in your house. So
That is super exciting. And so, if you were to give someone a piece of advice, other than just hiring you guys to completely do it for them, what advice would you give them before they started this process to make it easier?
I think probably the biggest piece of advice is that I would say is try and have as much planned out before you start as much as possible. Like there are some decisions that can be a little bit flexible, but for your main footprint and like your cabinetry and those sorts of things, because like I say, by the time you're done framing and whatnot and into the rough in stages, like you need to know all your light placements and where all your fixtures, your showers, and all that plumbing stuff has to be decided essentially by rough in stage. So, by that time everything is pretty much set. So yeah, my big piece of advice would be to have everything planned out as much as possible before you start.
Someone watching this or listening is saying, hey, this all sounds amazing. The house is obviously gorgeous. If someone is interested in working with you or potentially getting a little bit more details about the property that you guys have, how would they get in contact with you? And then I'll follow up with just give us a background of this kind of beautiful development that you guys have going on here north of Saskatoon.
There's a couple places where you can get a hold of us. Our website is at avodabuilt.ca. We also have an Instagram handle that we operate as well. And there's even further contact information as far as phone numbers and that, where you can chat with us.
Perfect. And then just expanding on this development that you and Amanda are working on. The homes are absolutely gorgeous. And I think being a small town guy myself, I have a deep appreciation for being out in the country and also not being that far away from some of your major amenities. So just tell us a little bit about the development.
Yes, so the development, we're pretty excited about it, obviously being our development and that. It's been a great labor of love, been enjoying that. Some of the amenities that are nearby, I'll start with inside the development if people are wondering, even like with schools and that. So currently right now, there's Hepburn Public School, which is just north of us. It's about 9 minutes of a drive to the school. And then there's also Valley Christian Academy, just outside of Osler. They actually both schools, they send buses into the development and are currently busing. This development is approximately about 10, 11 minutes from Martinsville. It's a couple more minutes to Warman. So it's a very easy commute. We are just up and off the highway on the east side of number 12. And from the outskirts of Saskatoon, you're about 16 minutes. And so I think it's like 27 kilometers to the North Costco or something. And then you're about, traffic dependent, you're about 25 minutes to downtown Saskatoon. So it's a very easy commute to get to wherever you need to go here. So
fantastic. And like I said, the panoramic views out here are really incredible. So if anyone is looking for more information on this, I highly encourage them to come check this out. Just lastly, a few last questions for you, Kirk. If you could go back, I like to ask everyone who comes on the podcast this question, to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give and why would you give that advice?
Don't be scared of the unknown. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I know for myself, everybody, including myself, you deal with the fear of the unknown in that. And I think, the big thing is educate yourself, whether it's books or podcasts or anything else like that. And then, but at some point, just take the plunge and just go.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, if you love seeing this beautiful home, make sure to like and subscribe to the video to never miss our future episodes. If you're in the market for a renewal, purchase, or refinance, I'm a licensed mortgage broker, and I'd be happy to help you out. Thanks so much for checking out this episode. Until next week, bye for now.